go, Julia. We got cows. Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
Maybe you can hum the theme song, won't hold it against you if you get parts wrong. While the memory's not too strong, there's a piece of you from a time long gone. So while these fuzzy warm feelings remain, question we ask is still the same. Is it a treasure or just plain lame? Is this still good?
Hello, and welcome back to Is This Still Good, a podcast about childhood treasures and seeing if they're still treasures once we take off the nostalgia goggles. I'm Sage.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, I would like to invite you into a very special place that I hope you're prepared for. Welcome to the Suck Zone.
The Suck Zone.
Oh, no.
Why would that not be the title of this episode about
no.
Twister? It's Twister. The characters in the movie call it the Suck Zone. I'm not calling it that. I would never be so reductive.
You're a twisted individual, and this is going to be a very twisted episode.
Might even have some twists.
Okay.
So this episode, what are we doing on this episode?
Which I don't know why we're doing this episode, Sage. I'm going to be real with you. I understand that you've been pushing for doing these cash grab episodes where when the Hollywood dips into the past and
if they're gonna profit from these movies, why shouldn't we
dust off these dinosaur bones and make another Jurassic Park while they're at it?
We hope that you understand that when this episode comes out, a new Twister movie is coming out in 2 days, and you're thinking like, oh, I wonder what these two assholes think about Twister, a movie that I loved as a child. To be honest, I think this does fit in with what we're doing. I know that when a new movie comes out of our Hollywood experiment, that I'm usually more excited to revisit or visit the originals. We missed our window to do a Bad Boys episode or a Beverly Hills Cop, both of which had new installments, fourth installments from long dormant franchises in the last month. Regardless of any potential episode, I ended up going back and watching all of these, and I used the new Twisters movie as an excuse to finally watch Twister, which, let's be honest, maybe I wouldn't have for another 10 or forever years.
Well, I mean, I think that the heart and soul of this is about looking back and revisiting. And I don't know if you know this, but I've never seen Twister either.
You've never seen Twister?
We're not revisiting Twister. We're both watching Twister for the first time. And we didn't get a guest this episode, so
all right, new bit,
all fresh takes.
This is my favorite movie, and I've seen it 20 times, and this is the last episode of our podcast.
And I mean, I'm down to we can do those movies that you just mentioned, Beverly Hills Ninja and Beverly Hills Bad Boys. These are movies that could happen.
I mean, Beverly Hills Cop, the first one's worth talking about. I could give my review of Beverly Hills Cop 4, which I saw this morning. It's fine. It's more Joseph Gordon-Levitt's very charming. Judge Reinhold is, according to sources who worked on the movie, an insane person, and that's disappointing, but it reads on the screen.
Maybe he was just staying in character.
Bad Boys 4, I haven't seen it yet. It's hard to get excited about that. Quick side note, there's a very interesting thing going on in Hollywood reboots where the reboot, the Lego sequel, if you will, the first one starring the same cast 15, 20, 30 years later, always does really well. And then they make a sequel to that and no one gives a fuck. That's like, did you know a new Ghostbusters came out this year, Gavin?
You know, I did. And I thought about seeing it. And I'm still thinking about seeing it.
Okay. Twisters might do very well based on nostalgia and like Glenn Powell. If they make a Twisters Twisters Sisters.
Well, this is already the Twisted Sister movie.
Okay. That's been withheld from me in the trailers. They've sold it clearly on Glenn Powell's smile and charm.
And Anthony Ramos being there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love it when Anthony Ramos is being there. So Twister.
So Twister.
It's Jan de Bont disaster movie that made $495 million worldwide and
As
was the
opposed to
highest.
Jan de Bont's disastrous movie, Speed 2, which did not make the same amount of money, I'm assuming.
No, that was a very. They played it too safe. They put it on cruise control. It was the second highest grossing of 1996.
Wow.
Which he sandwiched between two Speed movies.
Do you know what topped over it and what it cheated out of the top two?
Is it Independence Day? Is that 96?
God, I hope so.
Yeah, I don't know, though. Like, if you sneak away to the internet at some point here, you can interject there.
Yeah, call in, listeners.
Independence Day feels right. We're going to go with that. Yeah.
ID4, IDK. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So I guess I'll take a crack at summarizing this movie. Is that where we're at?
We've gone through our connections to it. It's a movie I've always been aware of.
Yeah. No, it falls into like, I've never understood the way that disaster movies have had a mainstay in our culture.
Oh, they sure did.
Yeah, I've never understood it. Speaking of Independence Day, I do think about that as a disaster movie.
Sure.
And it's the one I love. But
It's
that's
just aliens destroying things
Yeah.
on Earth as opposed to God in the sky.
a tsunami
Yeah.
or an earthquake or the San Andreas Fault,
Or some sort of Poseidon adventure.
some sort. Yeah, your Poseidon's adventure.
Yeah, your days after's tomorrow.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have missed a lot of these. I know you have a much softer spot. You actually went and watched Greenland, right?
I love Greenland. Are you giving me an opportunity to shout out Greenland? I think
By all
Greenland is
means.
everything a disaster movie does right, which it just like has a clear goal. It doesn't treat the audience as idiotic, and it's like you can feel the small budget at parts, but like then it gets bigger than you think it's going to get, and you're rewarded for it. It like focuses on the stuff you actually care about, which is less stuff going from the sky and more like, hey, why does Gerard Butler have a Scottish accent? This is the first Gerard Butler movie I've seen that actually acknowledges that he's an immigrant.
Wow, really breaking new ground.
That shit matters to me. I'm not going to say it should, but it does. We're smack in the middle of the 90s right now, and it's all these Schwarzenegger movies where he's a family dad, or fuck me, I watched some Van Damme movies this week, and like we're not going to acknowledge that he's the least American sounding person to ever exist.
I think I've got a soft spot for that though. Like I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Last Stand as honestly one of the most charming films of his career.
Yeah.
Where he's just an old town sheriff with a thick Austrian accent.
What if
that's
though?
never explained.
What if that same movie, but in Australia? And we get to hear Schwarzenegger asking a bunch of people, "How you gone? How you gone, mate?" I want that.
Oh God,
I want that
Yeah.
for all of us.
I'm glad Schwarzenegger's never tried accent work. I would really
Have you been to Bondi?
hear his tight five on Conan attempting to do as many accents as he could.
I would like another of your Bobby shrimp.
Anyway, for some reason we're talking about Twister.
Sounds like we're trying not to talk about Twister. All right, Gavin,
Yeah.
what happens in Twister?
So Twister is a little movie about you got Bill Paxton fresh off surviving aliens, or maybe that comes later. I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
He's got a fiance, but he also has a wife, and he's trying to end one of those situations. So he goes and drives to his crazy kooks group of friends and former lover who go around chasing tornadoes. And he's decided to hang up the spurs and go take a safe job being a weatherman.
Mhm.
Trying to lie to the public about when tornadoes are going to hit, rather than doing the real God's honest salt of the earth work and chasing tornadoes to
Yeah,
find out when they're
actually
gonna
hitting the tornadoes first.
hit. Yeah. Because when you stare into a tornado and it says you're wrong, you tell them, no, you move. Right.
Yes.
So he drives up to visit his ex-wife, played by Heather Hunt, I believe.
Helen Hunt, who is
Helen Hunt?
an actual person.
Who's Heather Hunt?
I don't. You made that shit up. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you doing a Heather Locklear, Helen Hunt thing?
I always mix her up with the woman from Jurassic Park.
Oh, they have very similar sounding names. You're thinking of Laura Dern.
Yeah, exactly. See,
Okay.
you can see where I got confused.
Nope.
And she has not signed the paperwork because maybe there's a part of her that's still hanging on to that relationship and hoping that he'll come back and they can chase tornadoes together. His new wife is very surprised by all this. She knew he chased tornadoes, but really didn't know what that meant. And
Sure.
Quickly, they are chasing tornadoes, and shit gets wild. They're all over the place, these tornadoes. They happen to be in like the most tornado-y season ever, and which is prime time for them to go chasing these tornadoes. But Cary Elwes, or Ewells, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
I think it's Elwes.
It runs a much cleaner operation, but they're not in it for the science. They're in it for the money. So fuck those guys. So they keep like staring each other down and chasing tornadoes. They've invented this barrel of sensors that they're hoping to get sucked up into a tornado without having to go into the tornado themselves. And this will be most of the story. Throughout their experiences, Philip Seymour Hoffman yells a lot. It's a good time with him. They eat some really good cooking, and his ex-wife's aunt, who is extremely charming and loves to see him. Everyone's very charming and has a good time. His fiancée is a little out of place. As they keep getting nearly killed by tornadoes, she realizes she's very far out of place. Maybe doesn't want to be in this relationship anymore. She ducks out, very, what's the word? Kindly, without drama. She's just like, hey, maybe you're crazy and maybe I don't need this in my life. Maybe I'm good. And he's like, damn, I guess I am crazy.
I guess
And
you
then
bring
he
up some
turns
good
to
points.
his wife and she's like, yeah, we are. Let's go get crazy.
And they high five and the movie's over.
And then she's like, but I also have trauma because tornadoes killed my dad. And he's like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. let's not get eaten by tornadoes. Let's figure them out. And so they trick the tornado into eating all these sensors, and they get the data, and then the credits roll.
They do. They tricked the tornado.
I think that's the movie. And they save her aunt and a cute golden retriever that he carries around for a portion of the movie. Credits roll, and everyone is happy because except for Cary Elwes gets eaten by a tornado. That also happens. That's the movie.
See, Cary
concise.
Elwes has the audacity to get money for his research so that he could do more research and advance the science.
I mean, they are spending a lot of money on like those really tightly driven. They look like, oh God, what's that movie? I'm not good at that game.
No.
But they've got all those like black SUVs. They look like a presidential motorcade driving into a tornado.
I love that you refer to the ability to recall movies as a game.
Is it not?
I would refer to it as a skill
I wouldn't.
or a proper development of interests you already have.
Well, agree to disagree. So that's the movie, I guess. Tornado chasing, a love story. Yeah.
Yeah, a few more plots in this movie than are necessary.
I mean, I don't know about that. That's part of like when we talk about, because I for better or worse, we are going to talk about this genre in a pretty broad manner and maybe two different types of genres. But for disaster movies, I feel like you need something else.
Okay.
And I feel like this movie barely has it.
Maybe better plots then. Maybe the problem isn't too many. Maybe the problem is that like you've got a tornado antagonist.
Sure.
I think it's like maybe
that.
I get really miffed when bad guys in the movies are just like normal people but are still like driving you off of the road and committing crimes in broad daylight.
I mean, the way they planned that, it could have gone either way. They basically drive out of a cornfield and nearly T-bone the villains. I'm doing air quotes as the podcast listeners can clearly see. they basically almost T-bone Carrie Elwes, and then they yell at each other for a while like it's not their fault. They drove out of a cornfield. Like, you can't be expecting that.
You can if you're chasing tornadoes.
No, I disagree.
Oh, they're fueled by corn. I just
yeah. What does that mean?
It means I want to get into something that I should save for later.
Go for it.
All right.
What's
so
structure?
Like, it's weird that this movie's not like sillier than it is. With like one of the main characters' motivations is like a tornado killed my pa. And now I hate tornadoes. I'm like, here's the thing: you're never going to find the actual tornado that killed your pa.
There it is. That's the tornado that killed my dad.
Although
I recognize him by the 6 fingers on his right hand.
That is my pitch for a better Twister movie.
That's the same cow from my childhood.
I would throw out everything. That cow's been going around. It's Bessie. She's been like swirling around for 35 years.
Like, so I watched this movie with my girlfriend, and there's a moment where they're driving into the destruction of the hurricane, worried about her aunt. Mm-hmm. And you see a family that looks just like her family, the opening family from the beginning. And she's like, wow, it looks just like her family. And I'm like, yeah, I think that it's clearly her family. It's the ghost. It's her memory. It's showing why this is poignant. Anyway, I thought that was funny. You can cut this out so that she doesn't get mad at me later.
Yeah, the instant you said you were watching with your girlfriend, all I could think of was like, well, she's not going to like this movie.
Well, she actually loved this movie as a kid. And I tried to probe her on why. And all she said was, I mean, it's got romance and tornadoes. What more do you need? And hard to disagree with, I suppose.
Well, that brings us into Divorce Corner. Kevin, you want to talk about divorce in the 90s?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this movie might actually, I think this movie came out during the year that my parents got divorced.
Wow, they really didn't like Twister.
And this is a movie about, like, you know, she does wind up signing the divorce papers in a very dramatic moment. But in the end, they're making out while chained to a pipe, having survived the biggest, like, what do they call them? F5 tornado?
Yes, it is an F5, in fact.
It's an F5 tornado. And everyone drives up and, like, finds them making out chained to a... It's pretty silly.
It is. They actually interrupt the first kiss, and then they're like, fuck it. Now that our friends are here, we can really make out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it seems like I don't really know if divorces were just up in the 90s, because it feels like it was happening to a lot of people's parents at that time, but that might just be because those are the ages that my parents were getting divorced, and a lot of my friends who had parents who were divorced also happened around that time. But it did seem like, you know, we've got Kramer versus Kramer, Liar Liar.
Okay, you keep saying that. Kramer versus Kramer is like 15 years before this. That's a 70s movie.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I believe
you. And like, I know you just rewatched Jurassic Park 3, which is possibly my second favorite Jurassic Park film. And I think it does a very good job of working with the dramas of divorced parents trying to protect their kid together. Now, I'm also going to accidentally say Tremors instead of Twister often, because in my head that movie lives rent-free. I don't know how we haven't done an episode on it yet. But it just rolls off the tongue better than Twister. I'm just going to say that.
Well, the movie itself is a tongue twister.
I don't know what I was saying, but yeah, divorce.
We were talking about Trevor's.
Oh.
Okay, so there's a lot of movies in the night. Like, I had always assumed that divorce would have been on the rise during this time, just based off of how many movies have characters that are divorced that are getting back together or have to go through something together. But very few of these movies ever show the audience why they got divorced
Or
or
why they're
even
getting
give
back
it in
together, almost.
exposition. Like, I don't think this
Yeah.
movie ever implies like why their marriage isn't working out.
It's because he was a sellout and he was going to go be a weatherman.
Okay, then why is she like badder about that? Why is it there's I don't know. This is honestly in this wild movie about tornado chasing, this is the part that works the least for me.
Mhm.
Also
It's also
just
the
the idea
main
that
story in the
everyone's
film.
falling over themselves over Bill Paxton. He's handsome. I don't know, because yeah, all of these divorce movies are also like everyone's getting remarried so fast, and just maybe it's my single 35 ass who just doesn't understand like even settling. How do you just like immediately just get married over and over? I've never understood these situations in movies or in real life where someone's had 4 or 5 wives. I just watched Spy Game and Robert Redford's been married 4 times, and all I can think of is
Yeah.
like, how did he have the time as a spy to pursue these relationships and get engaged? I understand why they worked out, why they didn't work out. I don't understand how they got to the point of marriage.
Yeah. I mean, now that we're in our mid 30s, you probably should have been divorced twice by now.
I think so.
It just seems like a lot more paperwork. I think that was,
Yeah.
you know,
Maybe women are just less afraid of being single now.
maybe
I don't know.
our guys. I don't know. um, yeah, I don't know. It definitely did feel like it was in pop culture in the 90s. There was also like, I mean, when you go back to the early Hollywood, there is more divorce among stars, but I think
Mhm.
that, you know, with the Hays Code and stuff, you wouldn't see that on screen. And in fact, like when we watch LA Confidential, which we also haven't done on this podcast, but we probably
That's
should.
surprising. Yeah.
You know, they're covering up that sort of drama and specifically not letting that be part of the news cycle the way that I think in the 90s and then moving on to the 2000s, like it just became more of pop culture as well. Maybe.
Okay, cool. We solved it. You know what I wasn't expecting watching this movie was to recognize as many gosh darn people as I did.
Yeah, this cast is like surprisingly stacked. I called Philip Seymour Hoffman Dustin Hoffman
Okay. I mean, his
on
character's name is
accident.
Dusty in this.
Yeah, that probably
So
threw me
that's,
off a little further.
yeah.
But man, God, he's so fucking charming. His death fucking sucked, and he is one of the greatest actors I can think of. Even in such a small role, he's not given that much to do.
No one
He's just
is.
a charming. Yeah, nobody is. I was
Alan
in my
Ruck
head. I was
isn't.
doing the
Jamie Gertz
math on.
definitely isn't.
I was doing the math on like there is a lot of actors in this film, even if they're not being paid that much. It's just a lot of mouths to feed. And I
Yeah.
mean, they clearly made their money back. Like, but how do you even juggle writing this many characters on the screen? You're like, and then this random
Well,
woman
you go
who-
through 4 different writers and revisions, and then you figure it out on set.
It's got the guy who the Joker sews a cell phone bomb into his stomach, who keeps popping up and stuff now, who's also excellent. But he's
Okay.
just like, you just see his face on the screen. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
I don't know, unfortunately.
He's a great he plays a lot of villainous characters in cinema, and he's just in this movie a little bit.
Yeah, I recognized almost every single person who showed up. Todd Fields is in this movie, who I really only know as a director. The director of Tar is
Oh.
one of the weather chasers.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's insane. Philip Seymour Hoffman is this weird period where if I hadn't already seen him age into a graceful and just a really accomplished actor who's been giving more things to chew on in his career. Between this and like Scent of a Woman and a couple other early 90s things, like he just seems like a super unlikable and maybe not that talented actor. I mean, he's having to share scenes with Chris O'Donnell and Scent of a Woman, and there's only so much you can do if Robin's in your movie. That's right, subtle dick.
Wow. I mean, when this also probably can't be that much later than Boogie Nights, though, too.
This is before Boogie Nights.
Oh, this is before Boogie
Yeah.
Nights. Shows what I know.
It's 2 years before Boogie Nights.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, even when you don't give him that much to do, he really sells exactly what he's doing.
Well, he has the best line of the movie.
What's that?
Suck zone.
God damn it. There's, yeah, the lingo and science that they try and push in this movie. I was trying to picture, because, so my favorite type of stories are getting consumed in a small world that I don't understand. I think that is one of my favorite parts of storytelling, where even if it isn't a world-ending situation, it becomes world-ending to the characters. Like, I think that the stakes need to be that big. And this movie clearly is trying to do that. I would say it mostly succeeds. But, like, I also just don't understand this world at all. And I find it charming. But
does it sound real from, like, a science perspective?
I don't think so.
Okay,
like,
so that's what
the
I'm...
fucking sensors in a bucket that they're trying to get an tornado to eat?
So do you know who wrote this movie?
I do not.
This is a Michael Crichton project.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did see that. It's Michael Crichton and someone else. Yeah.
So having watched a lot of Michael Crichton movies, I've never seen ER, but I've also read the vast majority of Michael Crichton books, and even the ones where the science gets a little sketchy. Like, he is focused in making certain that there is a base.
Yeah.
Michael Crichton, as far as I know, was never a meteorologist. He was, an ER doctor for a very, very long time. He takes this stuff
Pretty seriously,
but also once it goes through Joss Whedon and Steve Zalian, and like maybe people are just those are the three writers on this movie, by the way: Michael Crichton, Joss Whedon, and Steve Zalian, which is two writers more than you need to make something cohesive. But you've got a science writer, you've got a dialogue writer, and you've got a really strong plot writer. So the movie should be better. That's my point.
I mean, and that's part of it. Like, we're taking digs at it, and we haven't graded this movie yet on our in-depth scale. But I don't know what more I want from this movie. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, why, in a certain sense, the idea of a small romantic drama set amongst thrill-seeking scientists who chase tornadoes sounds amazing to me. I don't know why I never watched this movie growing up. It may have just come out a little bit too early for me. Like, the peak of its popularity was before I was watching this type of movie, because I would have been 7 when it came out. But there's a part of me that this is kind of the type of movie that I want to see. Now, we haven't talked about it too much yet, but the trailer for the sequel looks great. I'm excited to see it. I
got a whole section there. There's specific reasons I'm excited. I'm more excited now that I've seen Twister.
Yeah, and this movie, like, it was, for the time, the graphics the VFX look pretty good. It's post Jurassic Park, which is also a Michael Crichton project, although I don't think he had writing credits on it.
Which Jurassic Park, I've gone back and I did a rewatch of all the Jurassic Park movies, and that first one, I mean, it's obviously like a near perfect movie, but it also looks incredible.
Incredible.
It's using CGI for like 4 scenes, and then by the time they get to the Lost World, like, it looks worse, and that's still Spielberg, and like 3's got some real problems.
We definitely do not have a Jurassic Park that looks as good as the first movie, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wild. Like, and I mean, the CGI dinosaurs, by the time you get to Jurassic World, like, they look fine, and most of the, like, gravity of interacting with things and, like, the common mistakes made with CGI are gone, but
the choices in the blocking aren't as good.
Yeah.
The VFX might look equally good or better, but the way that they're being implemented has not hit the way that the first Jurassic Park did. Jurassic Park looks better than most movies, which is insane.
Yes, it is. Twister was developed as a Spielberg project
Yeah, I
originally.
saw his name in the credits too.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously Amblin, but it was like Crichton wrote it for Spielberg, and it's already weird to get in a studio time where it's just like, no, Twisters are our big project, and we're gonna cycle this script between John
I mean,
Badham and like a bunch of other like
again, it
prestigious
paid
directors
off,
until we
which
get
is
the
wild
guy who shot
too.
Die Hard.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah,
is that who Jan de? I was trying to remember who Jan, because I know Jan de Bont
we
from
know him from Speed.
Speed.
Yeah, Speed and Speed 2. Man, like I don't have his IMDb in front of me, but like
Yeah.
did a couple more movies like that and kind of petered out. But he was primarily a cinematographer through his career. He shot Die Hard.
Oh.
He shot Hunt for Red October. I think he might have shot one of the other Jack Ryan movies as well. But like that's sort of like the guy has some chops, and I'm really curious, not to throw you on a spot, but as a DP,
Sure.
like what did you read into the cinematography of this movie?
Um, I was pretty impressed. You can definitely tell that there's a lot of compositing going on in this movie,
Hmm.
and for the time, it looks pretty good, I would argue. It is interesting to think about this movie as being a huge. I guess back then you'd need the budget to be able to do what they're doing,
Yes.
and which means you need the marketing budget to make it a success, and it was a success. Like I'm still kind of astounded by the fact that this was an eggs in a basket situation that they went in for.
$495 million worldwide.
Yeah. But like overall, like it looks good. You can tell the compositing's happened. There's so much sky replacement, but it looks pretty good. Um, the there are definitely choices being made in terms of like, the finale takes place in a cornfield, which is beautiful seeing a car drive through a cornfield. It's never going to look bad. There's a lot of POV stuff happening within the cars that does help like really capture the emotions of being in situations chasing and feeling proximity to the tornadoes. My favorite thing though, to throw you into a corner, is the sound design in this film is actually very fun because the tornadoes are all basically talking. You just like hear them grumbling at each other and like growling. There's a lot of really fun choices being made. I know it's not production sound, but like post-production sound, they were having a field day.
They were. They do like, the classic Jurassic Park thing where it's a lot of
Yeah.
animal mixes and like fan
Yeah.
noises and everything. I wish I had more to say about it. It's like,
There's
yeah,
like
it's tornadoes, it's like a lot of like using what are those called? The little rooster on top of a barn that spins around,
yeah.
the barometers
Uh,
or whatever.
yeah.
The chicken barometers they're
wind
called.
charms, wind barometers. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's fun. It got a
That was a
nomination for
moment in
best
this
sound
film
time.
where they stare. They're both disheartened because they can't figure out how to make the Dorothy, which is their bucket of sensors, work. And then they're staring at like this wind chime, and they're like, "I figured it out. I've cracked it."
I don't know how I
Look
didn't
at
get
you
that
like,
when I was
"Of
watching
course."
Twister, but Dorothy, excellent name for something you're trying to plunge into a tornado.
Sure. Yeah. And they got a cute little drawing of Dorothy on the side of their sensors. There's they do just the right amount of charm in this.
Well, I mean, it's so the thing about the cinematography that stuck out that didn't really work for me. They shot this all on location,
Yeah.
which is typically a good thing.
Mhm.
Certainly something everyone should try to do. The problem is like they're shooting a lot of these scenes that are supposed to be before a storm or during a
Yeah.
storm when it's bright as shit out and there's
Yeah.
not a cloud in the sky.
No, and you can feel the
Yeah.
compositing. You can see the sky replacements, and it's not.
Yeah, and
Especially like, I mean, the tornadoes themselves also look very CGI and aren't always the best blended with the environment. Like every time the tornado's actually on screen, it looks even worse a little bit in terms of the compositing.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know how you do that better. Like without a lot more work and a lot access to better VFX tools.
Yeah. Or just like, shooting around your sky schedule and picking locations based on
Sure.
like some
And
weather.
you just can't. I mean, for a movie that's going to cost this much to make for what they did,
Yeah.
to just wait for clouds is some Howard Hawks shit, and it's like there's a reason that style of filmmaking went out popularity.
No, that's absolutely fair and it's unfortunate. Yeah, and then there's
It's
also some things at night where
irresponsible.
like what they're using to flood and make everything visible.
Hmm.
Fun fact: they weren't using like the right filters in front of the lights for a little bit, and both Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton went blind for an entire day.
Oh,
Yes. And then they put some like plexiglass in front of it, but this is just like the floodlights to probably like the drive-in movie theater seat's fucking great.
yeah. Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is a movie that like tries to treat tornadoes like Jaws or something. Like there's a monster coming, and it's like very effective in the drive-in sequence. And like I want to throw all the actual science and weather jargon out the window and have it be like, no, these people are being hunted by the tornado that killed their father.
I mean, that moment towards the end where they're like in the F5 and then it disappears and then it comes back right on top of them. It works. Like that is
Sure.
the Jaws moment. And that is like the idea of it. Like you can't predict like that is the whole point of this too, is that like they can't predict this. The reason that her family, that she lost her dad or uncle or whatever, was because you cannot predict these. The warning systems that they have are not
Yeah.
enough time. So they are a very real threat. And, the idea of that is played out pretty well in those final moments where you get to have it. They've argued it enough that you start to buy, sure, tornadoes can just appear and disappear at will, like Jason Voorhees in
Yeah,
Friday
so
the
to say.
13th. Why not? Let's do it.
Can you hear the cat dragging a toy towards me? Because it's
I cannot.
clearly playtime. Oh no, okay, you're gonna run away with the toy. All right, problem solved. Well, Gavin, it's a complete mystery to me how you feel about this movie. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it, but you want to try to get through our review section anyway?
Sure. You're asking me if it's still good, better as a memory, or we should chain it to a pipe and throw a tornado at it and see if it survives?
I said we should like give it a warning that the tornado is going to cross over them, and if it ignores it, then it can get tossed around and have a very comical explosion composition.
Oh God, yeah. I forgot. The explosion in this movie looked pretty rough.
Yeah, there's parts of it like God. This movie, if anyone was willing to give it just like a remaster for visual effects, some of the scenes need it.
I feel like the sequel was kind of there, and part of it too is like, so again, the sequel that's coming out is called Twisters. In the trailer, they say we
Good
got
title.
twins, we got twins, because
Yeah.
there's more than one Twister. This movie
But there's only one
already
Twister
had-
in the original Twister, right?
It not only has a bunch of twisters and a bunch of tornadoes in the first movie, they already have twin tornadoes. There's already a twin tornado scene which is pretty great. Our main characters drive onto a bridge and the tornadoes spin around them like a little cute dance.
Yeah,
And
the
then they're
same cow
fine.
keeps
Everyone's
flying by.
fine. Because they're smaller tornadoes. They're not F5s. They're like F2s, F1s,
No, it's really good. Oh, you know what? Before we go into our judgments, there is one more scene I want to shout out. I really love where the aunt's like having to cook food for
It's
12
very
hungry
charming.
boys who are just
Yeah.
yelling food over and
Yeah.
over.
No, and that is, I think this movie at its strongest is with how little we see those side characters, how charming they all are as a unit.
Yeah.
Like, and I hope that the sequel movie does an even better job of that, because that is my favorite type of story. It's just like a little weird family unit that has prioritized something that I don't understand. And through the course of a film, I'm going to get to understand that belief and joy that they find in purpose. So again, yeah.
So it's a good movie.
How do I feel about this movie? I mean, again, we don't have memories of this movie, so it's pretty hard to toss that middle one. Is it a perfect film? No. Is it like something I would highly recommend people rush out and see? Probably not. Is it a bad movie? No. It's pretty good. It has a lot of charm to it. The cast is very strong. I think that, despite the dated VFX and compositing, it's a pretty good looking movie. I enjoy the choices they're making visually. And, so I would give it a still good, probably. I think I'd say it's a good movie. It's fun. It's not something I would rush out to see, but like, I don't see how you could remember this movie being better than it is either. Like it's what it is. It advertises itself well. You know what it's going to be, and it delivers. You know,
You're giving this movie our highest rating of still good?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's fucking insane. This movie could get sucked up into a twister.
Okay.
Like, the thing that happens to her paw at the beginning, that could happen to this movie. Like, this movie's not good. There's things that I enjoy watching it. I would never recommend this movie to another person.
Interesting, because again, you are the person who watches disaster movies. I love Independence Day. I think
I may
Independence
just
Day
have
is-
a higher standard for disaster movie. It's just
maybe
like,
you've just seen better ones.
this movie's just not fun enough.
In my mind, I'm thinking about like Skyscraper is another one that I wish I know, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is like what would I throw in there, because Skyscraper is just a shitty Die Hard.
Yeah.
And I love me a good Die Hard. I love me a decent Die Hard. But
Yeah.
this movie felt like a decent disaster movie. It had enough of an A plot that wasn't the disaster that I could get invested in the characters, and I was in a charming world. That's what's important to me. And I feel like a lot of disaster movies don't necessarily advertise to me the charming world. Another movie that I'd maybe throw into this conversation is Cloverfield, which I have a lot of problems with, mainly because it does so much right in the setup that I feel like it throws away to kind of do nothing with for the majority of the film. But similarly, it has that wonderful setup of you get to know a group of friends that like are all very charming. You get to discover like a relationship that didn't quite work out, but there's going to be residual feelings that they're going to have to work out over the amount of the film. And then you get a giant monster or a tornado. So like in my head, I wish the Cloverfield was more like Twisters or Twister.
Wow. I mean, maybe part of me is pushing back at you giving it a still good. I think if you had given it a better in the back of your mind, I probably would have done that as well. Sure, I had like more hopes for this movie. Mm-hmm. I also kind of thought it would be like a nice like visual effects throwback, and like, yeah, there's 4 or 5 scenes that work in it, but just like so much of this movie looks like dog shits.
I mean,
like, in a way that
the CGI
I can't
is not
forgive.
great.
And this gets harder every.
The tornadoes themselves do not look great.
Every year as we advance, there's like CGI from like the 90s and early 2000s that I revisited 10 years ago and like, you know what? This actually looks pretty good. And I watch them now, I'm just like, dog shits. It's what we get used to. Video games are even bigger culprit for this.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is a difficult time period. The 90s, I think partially because of how successful Jurassic Park was, they got ushered into a place of possibility that maybe they didn't deserve yet. Jurassic Park did such a good job that, and especially like we're talking about it being Amblin, we're talking about Spielberg being involved.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was sold on it because they had the team behind Jurassic Park, which like that's a fun story listening to them talk about it. Spaz Williams and the team, like they also had an amazing practical effects team on it, Stan Winston, who, even if they weren't using those practical effects, that is a beautiful base with which to build the VFX around.
Yeah. So Twister puppets is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. There's some fun miniature work in this. Jan de Bont is like,
when they drive through the house, it's fucking amazing.
Too. Yeah. I'm sure that after doing this movie, he's like, you know what I need to do? I need to drive a boat through some houses, and that's how you get Speed 2.
That is a very good point. Speed 2, all I remember about that, Willem Dafoe does his, like, literally the same character as the Green Goblin. Like, is this plot through that? And then they crash into a town, and probably some other stuff happens in that movie that's not very good.
Who knows? Keanu Reeves isn't in it, so.
That's right. Jason Patrick, I don't know what. I mean, so this was my most surprising take out of Twister. I don't think I like Bill Paxton very much as a leading man. Like, okay. I've seen, I don't know what else to compare him to, because like I missed a lot of these movies in the mid-90s, and if I tried to name them, I'd probably think of Bill Pullman like everyone else.
Yeah.
I've loved Bill Paxton as like sleazy supporting roles. Like the ultimate Bill Paxton to me is Bill Paxton in Nightcrawler, Well,
and so that is another movie that when I was watching this, part of me wishes I was watching Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of two teams and we're with the more disgusting team is fun. We were with the more charming team in this one, which was also fun, but like I almost wanted this movie to be less ethical. I wanted
that would have been more fun.
Which
like
I'm
if,
hoping,
you know, one of them cut the other's brakes.
I am hoping that our sequel that we're getting, I want the villain team, the opposing team to be more sketchy. It looks like we're getting romance. We're getting like a Romeo and Juliet, like the two teams have a forbidden love, and he's the flashy bad boy of tornado catching, and she's probably similarly traumatized. Her family has
her pod definitely got sucked up by a tornado.
Her past is they've got family blood feud with the tornadoes in the region. And yeah, he's going to show her that tornadoes can be fun again.
Well, this is usually going to teach her how to fall back in love with the tornado.
Yeah.
Close your eyes and feel the wind.
Yeah.
This is usually the part in the podcast where we will do pitches for our own remakes. That seems silly considering in 2 days there will be a new Twister at the point of this release. So I would love to know like kind of what your hopes and expectations are for Twisters.
I mean, yeah, basically like I was saying, I just hope it's even more fun. I want the VFX are going to look a lot better, obviously.
Yes.
And I don't know how much I care about that, because at the end of the day, it's a tornado, like whatever.
I want to believe a tornado is a tornado, you know. I need to believe that the practical stuff is also real.
I do. I like the truck upgrade. I like that he's got horns on his truck now.
Yeah. I like that it could spiral into the earth and like hook down. I'm like, all right, so they could actually just go in the tornado.
That's what I'm yeah, and I'm excited about that. I want to see people like in the eye of the storm having that mix of like joy-seeking payoff and real terror. I want to see shit go right. I want to see shit go wrong. And yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I think that this is the right time for this weird reboot.
Yeah, it's being referred to as a standalone. I really hope that's true. I don't see how you shoehorn anything from the first movie into this new movie, and I certainly don't see why you would. I'm a little concerned just because like Glenn Powell and Bill Paxton do kind of look alike and have similar energy.
I mean, and I don't know who the female lead is, but she's also blonde, so
okay. No, it could very much be like Glenn Powell's there. But at the same time, I just assume Glenn Powell is kind of like taking on the more villainous role because he's got a real case of Glenn Powell face.
Sure.
Which worked so well in, Top Gun Maverick, where it's just like, here's an asshole who like he gives up a vibe of having a heart of gold, that sort of thing. He might do the right thing after just like gritting and eating shit for 90 minutes.
Yeah, he does have a redemption quality to him that like I don't really. Part of my problem with this last movie is actually Cary Elwes isn't really given much to do. Yeah. He just kind of drives around for a while. I don't think we ever see him he never even tries to deploy his Dorothy knockoff.
Yeah.
Which like I would have liked to see him fail too. Instead, we just see him him tell his driver to keep going, who then gets impaled violently, and then the tornado throws the car up in the air and explodes it with Cary Elwes in it. Yeah, I wish that I was also like kind of thrown off by his accent in this. I don't, not much to say about it, but like, it just didn't work for me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's definitely.
I love Cary Elwes. I think he's a great actor.
One of the weak links in this. It's also a weird time in Cary Elwes' career where it's just like obviously Princess Bride and Robin Hood Men in Tights, but you throw him in this and it's not like a comical role. Like it should be funnier if you're going to put Cary Elwes in at this time.
I wonder if a lot of his role got cut out or something.
It's entirely possible. This feels like a script where, especially the ways that they had to shoot it and the sacrifices they had to make, they probably had to cut stuff like on the fly.
Well, what about you? What are you looking for in this Twisters?
I think I've pretty much said it. I'd like to watch Glenn Powell smile on a big screen.
Sure.
I just don't want it to like be tied in any way to Twister, not just because I don't like Twister, but because like there's no benefit to it. If
Yeah.
there's like an Easter egg, sure, or whatever, or if it's the same tornado that killed Helen Hunt's dad goes back, or they discover that like tornadoes. Here's what I want out of Twisters. I want them to discover that tornadoes have feelings and personalities, and there are good tornadoes and bad tornadoes, and they harness a good tornado to fight a bad tornado. Because I think a tornado could fight a tornado in a way that works, and clearly the firestorm tornado is the bad. You know what? Not clearly. Maybe that's the good tornado. Like the tornado that goes through like a big oil fat refinery or nuclear energy plant or whatever, which is, bad for the environment. So that's my pitch. Just like they harness a tornado. It's kind of like, how in Jurassic World, like the raptors are kind of working with them.
Sure. Yeah.
I want that, but a tornado.
Well,
I want a tornado blue.
So this could be a sneaky sequel to Deep Blue Sea and Sharknado. They're trying to cure cancer through a tornado full of sharks, but they've realized that not only are the sharks getting smarter, but the tornado's also getting smarter.
Well, this is not good.
Yeah, this episode probably should have ended at some point ago.
Well, Gavin, if you're like me and did not care for Twister and do not wish to recommend it to people, or if you are like you and liked it more than me, but
still don't want to recommend it to people,
what would you recommend if someone wants to capture the spirit of Twister, but maybe wants a better movie?
This feels like cheating, but again, when I was watching this movie, part of me was thinking like, I wish I was watching Nightcrawler. There was another part of me that was wishing, I wish I was watching Anaconda. This movie gives off a little bit of Anaconda energy. Mm-hmm. Similarly, Deep Blue Sea, also very similar energy to Anaconda. Throw on any of those three movies. Nightcrawler is a little bit more of a serious movie that is an excellent performance about the lack of ethics in a type of journalism. It's incredible. It's if it didn't have Bill Paxton, I would be pushing back a little bit at the Venn diagram you're drawing, but like to me, that is a strong
teams. Overlap. There's the two teams in vans, doing something they probably shouldn't be doing.
and obsessively. Mm-hmm. It's the passion behind those movies that makes it really work for me. Deep Blue Sea has potentially cancer curing sharks, so that's good. And Anaconda has an anaconda in it. And
that's true.
Lopez,
it does.
And Jennifer Lopez is having a tough year with her concerts. So, I don't know.
What?
Go back and watch Anaconda.
Okay.
Give her some royalties.
She's got like 2 movies out on streaming right now.
She's doing fine. Yeah.
She's doing fine.
Yeah. What would you recommend?
Yeah, Anacondas. I didn't even think about that, but like also solves a big problem that I have with Twister, which is just like it's just not that much to look at in Oklahoma.
No. Yeah, it is a very flat, flat land place.
They're in court a lot. Like Anaconda's kind of a road trip movie where they're going through different environments and like everything's visually stunning and green and not like, night for day. Here's a twister. Here's some corn. Here's a cow. There's another cow. I think that was the same cow.
What do you think Bill Paxton could have taken on the Jon Voight role in Anaconda?
I think anyone could have taken on the Jon Voight role in Anaconda. I would love to hear Bill Paxton doing the Argentinian accent. Sorry, the Paraguayan accent. Mm-hmm. Clearly, because people would recognize the Argentinian accent and be like, "Hey, wait a minute." My recommendation, since you brought it up, Greenland. I think Greenland's everything that I actually want out of a disaster movie that's smart enough and fun enough. Or if you want the fun equivalent of that, another Gerard Butler gem, Geostorm, where the weather satellite that that Gerard Butler, very smart scientist man, has created is being taken over and is causing geostorms instead of preventing them. It's very good. Frankenstein
satellite, yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I love that we're finally in Gerard Butler phase where I like his movies. There was a long period where I didn't, and now he's just making planes left and right.
Plane is
Also
a delightful
recommend
film.
Plane. Fuck it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a disaster movie. There's a storm and they have to bring a plane down. Yeah, most of the plane is not on a plane, but it is on an island full of pirates. So they got to get back to the plane once they're off the plane. And
Well,
they
yeah.
got to fly the plane, and it's a whole plane thing. Cannot wait for ship.
All right. Well,
Well, thank you for joining us in the Suxo.
no.
We're going to take a bit of a break. We may do more of these episodes, but we're planning a different pattern for season 3 that I'm pretty excited about, and your mileage may vary. Gavin.
Yeah. Well, thank
All
you
right.
for joining us, and I hope you have a twisty evening.
Yeah. Go twist and shout to your friends about this podcast. Bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Sucks so.